Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Another big pay-per-view weekend is upon us. This is the Wrestling is Real podcast, King of Podcasts here with you. WWE at Clash at the Castle. AEW All Out this weekend. Saturday and Sunday, and then we also have When Worlds Collide from NXT. That's a lot. It was hard enough for me just to go and cover NWA 74 last week, which I did. I only gave one podcast of it, but I did do it on Sunday night after night 2. So if you want the full 2-night look at what I thought of where the NWA stands today, the National Wrestling Alliance and William Patrick Corgan, please take a look for the post show, for that show. It's right now getting some traction on the YouTube channel. Just look for King of Podcasts and look for it on the website, wrestlingisreal.com. You can find it there. Did about an hour talking about the NWA 74 pay-per-view, which was pretty fun. But as I said, as a product, they're pretty neutral. It's been hard for them to find some momentum, but that goes for a lot of different projects that are going on out there anyway, a lot of promotions anyway, to keep up and have the star power that stays around within a promotion as big as the NWA and move it forward. So they have some things they're working out. They're trying to build some stars. I talked about them very extensively on that podcast, so look for that. Meantime, also want to make a point that we heard about Joe Doring, the Impact Wrestling star and also All Japan Pro Wrestling star that is with Violent by Design in that faction, who's now undergoing brain cancer treatment once again, and hopefully he comes out of it okay. You know, I really never watched a lot of what he did before he came into Impact, but he's made a good presence, and there's a whole lot said about him, but, you know, what can you say? Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the state of where things are, because I'm going to say it now. It's not as if that Triple H is not looking at the bigger picture for the main event. But you already had a main event set in place pretty much with Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns before Triple H took the reins and took control of the product creatively. So that was already going to be in place. And as we look, the rest of the show looks really good. So I don't have a problem with where things are. You know, really, the mid-card, he's been building up very well. The shows have been more watchable. 2.2 million viewers at the highest end of this past Monday night's ratings, and 2.1 million viewers overall. Number 1 on cable. Great. Which tells me that whatever could be done to get the product in the right track and to do some things to build some interest in the product before Monday Night Football showed up, in the short amount of time that Triple H had, they've accomplished it. USA Network's happy. They've expressed some satisfaction in what they're getting right now from the product, which is great. But remember, we're only getting so many people out of that audience. Vince Russo, I know, when I bring him up, we're going to have voice of reason out of him sometimes. Some people are going to obviously be contentious over what he said, but he did make a point about what's going on with the shows. Okay. But he said something that I have been saying for the last month on this program. And I'm not afraid to say it again. It's true. You have to just realize the fact that everybody can be happy right now. A lot of the wrestling fans out there, the stands out there, that are happy with what's going on with the product. Oh, WWE's so much better. It's getting so much better. It's the NXT Black and Gold being brought up to the main roster, in essence, and some continuity and some interest in longer matches. Like, we're really getting the NXT Black and Gold kind of feel onto the main roster now. And so Raw and SmackDown are getting a taste of both of those. You're getting tournaments. And as I said a few weeks ago, it's the Tony Khan playbook from 2021. A lot of returns, tournaments, some big matches that are brought on, championship matches on a regular basis. The mid-card title's getting an extra push, which is all great and good. And so he's done a lot of what can be done. And look, you can't help yourself, but like, you're going to go to Cardiff, Wales. this weekend, that crowd's going to be pretty hot for all that they're going to do out there. That's great. But Vince Russo, last week, I didn't catch this, but I saw it pop up somewhere. And I'm just going to read this out. As Vince Russo, as you know, I do the impression. When the industry leader officially gives in to the niche audience, the wrestling business as we knew it is over. That's 100% what Triple H has done, despite HBO's House of the Dragon, bringing in 10 million viewers in wrestling. Ratings clearly don't matter at this point. I'm going to interpret that tweet this way. It is the niche audience. It's the core audience. He's bringing the core audience back. But that core audience is not 8 million viewers at the heyday of the Attitude Era. It's not. And we also know that we're not going to get the kind of audience that's going to go out there and watch. I mean, we don't get an audience on cable or network TV right now that really does much except for sports. So what is being said is this. That WWE really needs to continue to do things to bring in a mainstream audience. Now, the occasional appearance by Logan Paul in matches, Pat McAfee wrestling, Ronda Rousey being a part of the main roster, and more or less being a part-time to a full-time player. You need those stars, plus the ones that have been built up to a certain level during the time that Vince was in power. I'm going to take the point that Drew McIntyre was made a big star by Vince. Bobby Lashley has been made a big star by Vince. And Cody Rhodes was going to get the rub beforehand. Riddle was on his way up. And Seth Rollins was upper mid-card, but you could always shine him up for a main event. And then you look at the women's roster. Bianca Belair has been made a star. Becky Lynch, when she comes back. Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey. Like, there's names there already built in that the mainstream audience will check out and will be familiar with. You could put them on the Tonight Show. You could put them on whatever show and they'll be viral. And they'll get noticed. Okay, Sasha Banks when she comes back. Eventually. But these are not stars. They might have been stars that made it through the Performance Center where Triple H had some influence and was definitely programming the product of NXT during many of those years, formative years for these stars. But of those names right there, who's in that list? Drew was FCW with a short stint at NXT, right? Did he even make it? Yeah, he was in NXT for a short while. But everybody was basically not part of that NXT Black and Gold brand that are the really big stars of that brand. Riddle, to a point. Seth Rollins, yes. Roman Reigns, yes. But it still comes down to it's what was done on the main roster that Vince was in control. No matter how the push, pull, start, stop pushes that all these stars got, eventually, somehow, some way, they became larger than life superstars. Roman Reigns, to me, is at the level of John Cena. He's at the level of Brock Lesnar. He's at the level of Batista, or I'm going to say The Undertaker. Like, he's at that level now. He is that big a star. He is special. And the way they set him up, along with the Usos, makes that whole bloodline faction very special. And is the biggest draw on the entire product. Still. Now, what we have here is a mid-card that's being built up that's going to satiate the core audience. We've been saying that many times. I've said that for weeks on this program. And what Vince Russo is saying as well is, what about the rest of the audience? Because Vince Russo is always going to placate to what is popular in television and popular in culture on television, and would try to program and create things off of that. So he can very well take like the Viking Raiders and make it something out of House of the Dragon. something like that. But I mean, the thing is, you find ways to figure out what's, and really Vince Russo has a nice idea going on. But the other thing too is that it's social media that rules the day. It's TikTok, it's Instagram. That's what really rules things right now. Not what they're saying here with, what's on TV. I mean, streaming, yes. You want to take a little something out of Stranger Things, take something a little bit out of House of the Dragon, sure. Take something out of Euphoria. Take something out of Squid Game. I don't know. You can do that. But you need all of that. What Triple H is doing a big piece of the pie. The hardcore branded audience will do word of mouth, and once they're all getting back into this again, they'll obviously tell their friends and get people back into watching wrestling again. Okay. But it still comes down to what you need to bring in some mainstream viability. I mean, they have to do that. And what's interesting about some of the things that were going on is about Vince Russo with his claim that he was consulting USA Network on Raw and what was going on. And he had been doing it for the last 2 years until April 2022. He said, and had to support Skeeta for transcribing, "I've been keeping a little secret for the last 2+ years. I want to come clean." Well, bro, I'm going to break the news to you on this show. I have not said this publicly before, but from March, pre-Mania, bro, it was right before Mania in 2020 up until this past Mania in 2022. So basically, bro, for 2 years, I was consulting for the USA Network. For 2 years, bro, the USA Network paid me very, very, very well. And then there's other things he continues to goes along. I mean, he is constantly the critic going on out there. When he talked about Johnny Gargano's return to Raw last week, he said, "See, again, this was an opportunity to tell us more about Johnny Gargano. All he told us is he loves wrestling. Every wrestler loves wrestling. Come on, man. You got to give me more than that, please." I had a huge pop, huge, bro, because one of his first lines was, "What a surprise. I'm sitting there and I'm saying it sure is for the casual fans. This is a huge surprise. Why is this Mark in the ring? Who is this Mark? Is he from catering? Yeah, bro, it was a huge surprise for the casuals." And that's his point, is that he's going to look at the bigger picture. And I maybe will not go the route of booking where Vince Russo does, but I will say that he's right in perspective of the fact that the bigger picture needs to be looked at. And that's all I've been saying on this program, which is why I'm not the most popular program, the biggest show out there. Okay, I don't get this big, huge audience with, hundreds of thousands of people. I need 1,000 likes on the YouTube. I don't need that kind of thing. I don't have the kind of audience, okay? My size is not that big. I don't have that big of an audience out here that I can pump some kind of ego. I don't. I have a very satisfactory audience, which I've put word of mouth and grown to thousands of listeners around the world, which is great, and I appreciate it. But there is something to be said about the direction of the show and how much of what was going on this week really relied on what happened to what we're going to get at Clash at the Castle this weekend. Because you have matches that are built here, and no matter what, Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns was the match built up for this night. When you look at the show's card for the rest of the night, the undercard is what Triple H had a chance to work with. And as we've heard, there's probably not going to be many changes to the main event part of the card. The plan to WrestleMania might as well just stay in place. If Rock and Reigns are set up for WrestleMania 39, then let it be. But right now, we look at Undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, which has been built very well. The difference with Triple H is he used the packaging to talk about Drew's career and his work on the way up, especially the two packages they put out on Raw Monday night. Fantastic. That's the Triple H touch, right? The BT Sport footage that went back when Drew McIntyre went for the title before. That just never got run on TV, but this time it did. Those are the little things that finally people were saying, okay, the background is good for all these shows. Wonderful. And then you have the Intercontinental title. You let Sheamus win that five-way match or the four-way match, whatever it was. And Gunther and Sheamus gave us a very classic promo battle on SmackDown that really did sell the match. So without any sighting of Ronda Rousey getting a rematch on Liv Morgan to continue that feud, no, we're moving along, and Liv Morgan now is dealing with a Shayna Baszler who has been able to get the best of her several times and injure her to make it very hard for her to win over Shayna Baszler this weekend. And that was part of a women's match, a gauntlet match that Shayna Baszler won to make her way into that match, of which these matches were all booked a week in advance at least, not just instant matches, instant feuds all the time. Some of that instant satisfaction is still happening. I guess they can't help themselves. They're still going to do that once in a while. Then you got Seth Freakin Rollins and Riddle, which had a wonderful promo battle between them with the extra touch they put when they said the cameras were off. And Seth Rollins using that line about his wife divorcing him and taking his kid. That's damn good. And yeah, it's over the top where Vince would never do that, but that was a very well put part where you could have seen that, via satellite, both people talking to each other. And then here, they've definitely put a lot of aggression in the Seth Rollins Riddle match, which makes for good stuff. The question is Riddle going to get the win over Seth Rollins? Which is what should happen at the pay-per-view. And then you've had the month-long build from SummerSlam with Bayley, Dakota, Kai, Io Sky versus Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and Bianca Belair. All that's been built up in a very interesting format. That, remember, you got 6 women that are all working with each other in various things, and you've definitely not made it very vanilla. You had the tag team tournament to apply Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Dakota Kai, Io Sky in that feud. Bayley and Bianca Belair have not gotten hands on each other yet. You've kept that strong. You had Trish Stratus one week be involved in the whole setup with things in Toronto. Great. All this works out. And then the tag team tournament, you're seeing Bayley, Kai, and Sky first in the stands heckling, and then on commentary this week. So they're doing some variety there. You might still get some of the same, people in the same feuds together, but the matches aren't the same. And even if they are, you're getting more value out of the matches themselves because you're going to get a chance to work more time. And you're also putting some matches together you normally would not see, but are also getting some good press because of the time that's been given. Like those big long matches and people getting to work and really get some time in and getting clean finishes and not having so many DQ finishes and matches meaning nothing. Great. That's all wonderful stuff. You did Rey Mysterio and Edge against the Judgment Day, and you set that up for weeks where Edge got the upper hand in Toronto. And then you had another great opening promo for Raw to set up that match. Listen, the build for all these matches, they were extensive. You had quite a bit of dimensionality to all of them. And a lot of context. Now, I don't know, you could say that you could have built these more to a crescendo and put more heat on these matches. Sure. I mean, Seth Rollins and Riddle, you definitely have. You've gotten a lot of things that come across with Rey Mysterio, Edge, and Judgment Day, because Judgment Day, you always keep seeing Rhea Ripley getting the upper hand. Some kind of dominatrix kind of thing over Dominic Mysterio. Something about that. But like I said, they have done a good job of making matches matter. They have done the build-up, which is something they did not do. But that's the fundamentals of what this company needs to do, which is what every other promotion does. which for many years WWE would do. But every match now has a storyline. It's pretty intricate. It's been fleshed out. The question will be, what are the outcomes going to be? How are the finishes going to go? Who comes out on top in each of these matches, out of each of these feuds? And that's what we have to figure out now. Where are they going to go with that next? And I want to know. I'm curious about it. So I want that to be something that will continue to be important overall for the product to get better. They need to keep doing those kind of things. But as I said, we got 6 matches so far for the card. And as far as I know, I don't know if they have any of the matches all set up. But they've done a good job. Now, there's still a few people that can always try to get to bring back to the main roster at some point, sign them back up, whatever it is. Sasha Banks, Naomi, and most likely Bray Wyatt are all going to be returns at some point. But the real test will be with Raw if they can sustain the audience they have right now from football. Like, how many of those fans are going to be from football? Here's what could very well happen. The audience they have right now, you might get a little bit of a drop-off, but maybe Raw will continue to retain that 2 million viewer number, and they won't go beneath that. If they're able to do that, that's a win for them. But they still need to go ahead and do what they need to do to get the audience from other areas and get new viewers coming in. Now, one of the things I also noticed as well, which is probably the reason why, is the fact that the younger audience is starting to grow. I believe that's going to be because of the fans out there. I think they're getting their kids more into it again as before. That's what I think it is. I can't say for sure, but I can understand why it would be. But to continue to keep people up and going and interested in what's going on with the product, they have to do more. It's amazing. WWE, above everybody else, ruled the night on cable. I mean, you're not, for other programming, the audience they have to go after. It's going to change because remember, what happens soon is Monday Night Football will come in. Start around 8:18, 8:20 in the night. You got that first 15, 20 minutes to get people kind of stuck to staying on to watching Raw until football begins. The kickoff's around 8:20. And once that starts, you know, you're going to see if you can keep the audience or not. But for them, you have to ask yourself, well, like, where is the audience going to be coming from that's going to be drawn to cable in the first place? That's another thing you got to ask yourself. A great example is the MTV Video Music Awards that happened this weekend. The MTV VMAs. Over all of the Viacom channels, which is like 12 channels in total, they got 3.9 million viewers combined for that show. I mean, that's not... I mean, it's better than what they had the year before, but like that's like not much. And if that's the best we're going to get out of all these shows so far, that sucks. What are you going to do to draw people off of social media or draw them off of streaming to get them to go ahead and flip over, put on the cable box and watch Raw? Well, you can watch it on the app, but like the cable audience, there's that. And the on-demand audience, I don't know how much there is on top of what there is off of this. But the good news is that the audience they have right now for the shows for Raw, for example, is they're getting the most of the 18 to 49-year-old viewers and the bulk of the 18 to 34-year-old viewers. Like they're getting the younger audience, which is actually quite spectacular. Like on all their programming, they're getting the youngest audience possible. That's great news for them. And the numbers for 18 to 49 are going up. So even if the audience was a little bit dwindled, they would still be picking up number one for the night. So good on them. Maybe that audience is going to retain. And that's where the pendulum swing is that if their audience is able to get up to that point and they're able to sustain a younger audience and get them all up there just like that, that's great. It's different for AEW Dynamite. Now, they are pulling the demographics themselves for their programming. So last week's show with Moxley and Punk and their title match being featured on the show, they pulled over 1 million viewers. And for them, much more aggressive night, by the way, Wednesday nights on cable, they did pull the highest end for 18 to 49, 18 to 49 men, women, and 12 to 34 for men and women and persons. So they're getting it. Wrestling is getting that audience. It's getting a younger audience for the nights they're on cable. But to get the other audience, this is where people need to realize, okay, you need to find some things that are going to make things go viral, which is what needs to happen for these wrestling shows. They need to have things that will go viral. And all of a sudden, people will just go ahead and jump in to watch the whole show. Some people are just going to watch the clips because that's even in podcasting. We know that many people cannot watch the entire 3-hour Joe Rogan or listen to the 3-hour Joe Rogan or some of the shows out there that go 3 hours long. I get it. So you're watching clips of it because somebody will provide clips. WWE will do that as well. And so if they do that, that's wonderful. And then you got to ask yourself that when they're doing that, the other thing I want to ask is just if what they're doing right now does the same for what they're doing on the main product, right? Like, I also want to find out what they're doing in terms of how they're doing with the numbers that they're getting for what they're putting out on their channels. So if I look at the video stuff they have right now, if you're looking across the board, the things that are getting really viral on here so far, and I'm looking back just for the past day or so and just trying to see what is there out here that is really catching a lot of virality. Like anything I can find right now that gets over 1 million views on their YouTube channel, just as an example. At the moment, the top 10 Raw moments from a day ago got over 1 million views. A video of every Roman Reigns championship defense of the title in the last 2 years, that got 1.5 million views. The clip of the Women's Tag Team Tournament Finals got 400,000 views. Kevin Owens and Jey Uso from Raw and the clips on that got over 500,000 views. Kevin Owens confronting the Usos and Sami Zayn got 500,000 views. So you're seeing things that are pulling up right here and the interest of stars that were already built and established and getting them to do something on here and seeing what really stands out. So they're getting some things here that get some views, but they need to find things that will, if they're able to draw certain things that are absolutely getting over 1 million views on a regular basis over a week's time, that'll make a big difference for them. I think so. So, for instance, 4 days ago, there was a 40-second package of Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre colliding at the Clash of the Castle, 744 million views, or 744,000 views. But other than that, if you just look at the last week, that's the viral part, is McIntyre and Reigns, the main event. And everything else is just what it is. They have to be able to pull more going on with what they're doing. For AEW, they're still trying to build an audience. But remember, with WWE, they have that social media following that is just ridiculous. But with what they're doing, they have to be able to find things that are going to draw much more than ever. Because even right now, if I look at anything with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, that's the stuff that's getting the most push out here of anything. It's just the way it is. Anytime I see anything where Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre are in a ring, in ring action, it goes viral. Pretty viral on Instagram, YouTube, on their social media. So they have to figure out what they can do to get some mainstream attention and have some stars on that are going to get mainstream attention as well. So every time Logan Paul shows up or a Bad Bunny shows up, they have to keep doing that. And that might be against the grain of what Triple H is doing, what he did in the Black and Gold brand, but he's going to have to do that. It's no choice. And then as for what he's doing with NXT 2.0 and building that audience up, he's putting in some pretty good matches in there, and there's title shots and all that kind of stuff, which is great. The build-up for Worlds Collide, the Go Home episode, 676,000 viewers. So they're staying pretty solid of their normal viewership. And that's even with the fact they had a bunch of different superstars that popped up on the Worlds Collide Go Home all together anyway. They did that too. So they're doing what they're going to try to do to build up things. And it doesn't matter if you're giving Matt Riddle his first name again, or Austin Theory his first name, or Angel Garza's first name. All this is aesthetic. This is all optics. The mid-card, you are now making the audience stay around and watch the whole show. Instead, what they would watch during the Vince era is probably watch, like I did, there's probably 2 or 3 different things to watch, the sandwiched in between all the fluff. Now there's not so much fluff. Now there's a show you can actually watch with Raw that, you know, you might pull yourself away from the TV to go grab some food or grab a drink or whatever, but you'll want to get back because there's a pretty good match on. And that's what we're getting. We're getting watchable wrestling television. Not so much sports entertainment. So that's fine, but it's the bigger picture they have to worry about, and which is what's going to bring that audience, continue to build it back up. Now, they're not going to pull 4 million viewers or something like that, maybe again. But across their social media and across to make sure that their live shows continue to do well, because they're selling out shows, which is great. But then the audience needs to continue to be engaged. So the momentum is up for the show right now, and they have to keep that momentum. And there will be obstacles that will come into play. They just have to keep an eye on all those things and make sure they try to work everything out. It's really dependent upon them to do that. So let's do preview and predictions right now. Let's do the predictions right now for Clash of the Castle. Let's just bring them up right now as we speak. That's where I think things are going to go. With Rey Mysterio, Edge, and the Judgment Day, I'll take the Judgment Day on the win. And I believe something will happen with Dominic to make that possible. And I think Edge and Dominic will have some kind of falling out, which will cause the loss. And maybe Dominic will then end up joining Judgment Day, and Rey's caught up in this. And I don't know where you go from there, but I think that's what you do next. Bayley, Dakota, Kai, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Bianca, Belair. I'm going to take Bayley's team to win. I do think that's going to happen. When you're bringing Bayley back with all the fanfare and just getting Dakota, Kai, and Io Sky back up, like, it's Bayley that's the focus here. And sure, we see the work rate of the other women that are on this faction, but I mean, it's still Bayley that's front and center. She's the mouthpiece. She is the absolute reason everybody's on top of it. So anybody that's associated with Bayley, they get brought along. And so you got that going for you. And so I think the heels will win in that match. Riddle should beat Seth Freakin Rollins. And let these guys have a long time to match. And honestly, let them just feud. Like, there's so much we could do more in this feud now if you want. I want Riddle to win. Matt Riddle, excuse me. We're just going to add his name right now into that. So just to make sure, onto my list. So there you go. I'll take that. I think Shayna Baszler will beat Liv Morgan to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. One of the things I'm really happy about of the Black and Gold change, this influence right now on the main roster, is that Shayna Baszler is now being pushed as she should. the Queen of Spades, the Submission Magician. I like that she's now at this point, especially for the women's division. I don't need every woman to be like a glamazon, all this kind of thing. I want women that are, and I don't think anything's so bad about Shayna. I think she's attractive, but she's tough as shit. She's tough as nails. I want her out there because she's believable. She's the MMA star. Let's get her out there, and then let's get her and Ronda Rousey on in a program together. I want that so badly. It's obvious. They already kind of planted the seeds with that anyway. So let's go to that next. And Liv Morgan will bow out. Take her out for injury, by the way. Let her get injured. Give her some time off because she's been out there so much, and then bring her on back. But she should be written off a storyline right now so that Ronda and Shayna can have the tete-a-tete now. That's what needs to happen next. The match that really does intrigue me besides the world title is Gunther and Sheamus. I love this. I really do. Sheamus did a great job in his promo work with Gunther, the head-to-head, in the ring on Friday night. It was fantastic. We're getting a World of Sport match. This is something like this out of like a, Blue Bloods, Dave Fit Finlay, William Regal type of feel to it. I want these guys just to slap the crap out of each other. Go catch can. Give us some old school, man. Let's get some mat wrestling going on. Brawling these guys. I want this. I'm excited for that match a lot. That looks like a fun match. A match we would never get. In the Vince area, this is a Triple H kind of thing. I love it. So let's see. I think Gunther will retain. They definitely have a rocket on that guy, and that's good. But Sheamus is a great foil here for Gunther, so give these guys some time. I want this match to have some time. Plus, Gunther and the Brawling Brutes, we're going to see some chicanery over there, some shenanigans, if you will, if we're talking so European. That's going to go on in this match. That's pretty sure. Along with Ludwig Kaiser, you can see that going on. It's interesting that the two heels are going after each other, but hey, why not? And as for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, I will take Drew McIntyre on the win. Roman Reigns and The Rock do not need a belt for that match to happen. And I think Roman Reigns has exhausted everything he's done with that. And honestly, with Drew McIntyre, if they did something where they had to split up the belts, you can do that with him. But with Roman Reigns, keep it succinct. It's 2 years as champion. That's enough. Roman Reigns can always win the belt again, but it is time to get someone else there. Let's get Drew McIntyre at a great venue for him. Let him have this championship. Drew McIntyre, and honestly, he could run really well with this. And I'm telling you what, I want Broken Dreams. I want that entrance theme when he comes out on Saturday. I want that badly. So the show's at 1:00 in the afternoon as I'm watching on the East Coast. And I'm going to watch it on Saturday, but I will not do a show Saturday afternoon. I'm not that quick on that. For these kind of shows, if you know me, I'm always doing the post shows after the fact. I'll do it normally around this time, 11, 12 o'clock at night after I've watched it. And then I will go ahead and do a post show for it and put it up for all of you. And as for Worlds Collide, I don't know if I'm going to get to it. If I got a chance to watch it before, I'll see what I can do, but I will do a post show for Clash at the Castle. I will do that on Saturday night. And then I will do a post show for all AEW All Out on Sunday night after the show's done. So catch those right here, WrestlingIsReal.com. I will have post shows for those shows this weekend. Enjoy that. And let's go now to All Out. Take some time to talk about that. Now with them, sure, there's a lot of things that can be said about where there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of things going on behind the scenes at AEW that everybody's talking about right now. Got it. And so everybody's really up and at it about what's going on. And so, what we've looked at so far, by the way, there's some breaking news that just came out as I'm watching the feed right here. Bobby Fish, we're learning that his contract will not be getting renewed with AEW. And it looks like he might have about a month left on his deal. And Bobby Fish could very well go back to WWE because he had positive things to say about Triple H, speaking on the Two-Man Power Trip Wrestling podcast last week. So he could very well make his way back to the company. But for Bobby Fish, he is up there in age. So, I mean, it's not like he's going to have some kind of a renaissance where his career is going to be so... Oh, he's 45 years old. The one thing is that he did say in a quote from a headline, I would go to war for that man. So maybe Bobby Fish will go back. And that's fine. I just think if you bring Bobby Fish back, I don't know if you keep him as a single star. I think you could put him back in a tag team. I don't know. But we'll find out. But that's one of the things that's going on here. So the Undisputed Elite's not going to be intact as much where Kyle O'Reilly will be now in the backdrop. But Kyle O'Reilly then will just go back to where he was. Red Dragon had their run in AEW. And Kyle O'Reilly could do one of many things. Continue to be part of the AEW roster, or he could be starting to be used on the Ring of Honor side for their shows because he is a Ring of Honor star in essence. Still. So we don't know what they're going to do yet with that. But either which way, that's the plan. He was brought on. And if the contract's up, he was only for a year deal, it looks like, then that's it. He'll drop out and he'll do what he wants to do. So now, we didn't have a main event set up for All Out set in stone. Still have the idea that it was going to be Moxley and Punk anyway. But tonight, we got a few things that helped us for tonight get us secure with the world title match. Ready to go. A rematch with Moxley and Punk that will be held at All Out as the main event. So Jon Moxley tonight on Dynamite saying that they're still mobbing on Punk from the mat in Cleveland. Moxley still said he had 57 minutes left in him last week, but Punk didn't. And Punk hit him with his best shots, but he kept coming forward. And Punk folded into a ball to die. And the champions never fold. And he's sorry that Punk didn't turn out what anyone wanted him to be in AEW. And that Punk has a weak mind and spirit. And that he presents an open contract for a championship match at All Out. And that he's the living embodiment of wrestling. And Ace Steel, who was a tag team partner in TNA with CM Punk, grabs the contract. They set things up with the Jericho Appreciation Society with Jericho and Danielson going to be heading up head-to-head at All Out. You had the setup for the women's world title match where Thunder Rosa had to drop the belt. And I learned from K100. Conan made the point that Thunder Rosa had a torn ACL and not a herniated disc like the dirt sheet said. She has a torn ACL, she's out. And so we know that the interim women's title will be put up for grabs. And they had the 4 participants in a 4-way match. Or in a tag team match, excuse me. And so they set up that part of the match. FTR and Wardlow in a featured match. Christian Cage and Jungle Boy have a backstage interview to set up their match. Wardlow and FTR with a squash to set up their tag team match coming, or the 6-man tag coming up. Dante Martin, Rouge Phoenix, Wheeler Yuta in anticipation of their upcoming casino ladder match, which was added to the show this week. And the United Empire, by the way, I call them, what was it, the Aussie Open? Man, what was I saying? I'm sorry, guys. That was at the start of the show, so I'm going to make my correction right now. United Empire, Will Ospreay's group. I don't know what I was thinking. But I said that, and I sound like an idiot. Oh, Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. So I was partly right. Okay. I don't have all that. Listen, I don't watch enough New Japan to keep things right here, but I try to keep up with it. I try my best. Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis are Aussie Open. All right. I'm sorry. I only know Will Ospreay. I've seen enough of him to match him against him and Ricochet and all that kind of stuff, right? All that going on. Wonderful stuff. And then Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, who are now entered into the finals of the Trios tournament. The tournament final. So far, we know that we have the World Trios Championship Tournament semifinal. Hangman Adam Page will join the Dark Order, John Silver and Alex Reynolds, taking on Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, and Chuck Taylor. And I'm going to guess that Hangman Page will be with the Dark Order, and they will get the win over the Best Friends to move on to All Out. That's where I think things will go with that match. And then the setup for All Out: Ruby Soho and Ortiz versus Tay Melo and Sammy Guevara. And then Ricky Starks and QT Marshall, as Ricky Starks sets up for his match with Powerhouse Hobbs. Let's go into the card going up this weekend for AEW All Out. Again, I will be doing a post show for that right here, WrestlingIsReal.com. A lot of matches on this show. 10 matches. And we have a pre-show match that's also been already announced. Eddie Kingston versus the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii. I expect Eddie Kingston to win that. I expect Jungle Boy to beat Christian Cage. I think Ricky Starks will get the upper hand on Powerhouse Hobbs. The AEW World Tag Team title, Swerve in Our Glory, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee versus the Acclaimed, Max Caster and Anthony Bones. Is Billy Gunn going to be at ringside with them? So I don't know about that, but that could make a big difference. But anyway, the Acclaimed and Swerve in Our Glory. That's been a very interesting feud, mostly on Rampage, to set that up. The Casino Ladder match is being set up, and the winner will get a AEW World Championship title shot. And so far, you have the Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli, the Ring of Honor Pure Champion Willa Yuta, Penta Oscuro, Bray Phoenix, Dante Martin, Andrade El Idolo, Rush, and the Joker, who will be determined at the show. And by the way, W. Morrissey coming out tonight to wipe out the Wingmen, who would normally not be out on Dynamite, but W. Morrissey, and looks like he might be accompanied now by Stokely Hathaway, who's starting to build up quite a stable for himself. Going to become almost the Bobby Heenan of the AEW roster. It's quite interesting here. I'm just wondering what it's going to be soon enough where Stokely's going to have like the whole group together and how we're going to see it all pan out. And that's what I want to find out with that. So in the Casino Ladder match, I'm going to take Rush to win. And I think Rush will be the next person to take on Jon Moxley, which will be a hell of a match. Just saying. Actually, we already saw Rush. Forget about that. Maybe we just need to see Jon Moxley and Andrade finally, which will be also a wonderful match in itself. I'm going to change my prediction. I'm going to take Andrade to win in that match. I don't even know how you're going to pull that, but that's going to be a hell of a match, that ladder match. Wow. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. Talk about work rate. The Lionheart against the American Dragon. I'm going to take Danielson to win. Don't sleep on this. But one of the matches I'm really excited about, and it's the tag team, the 6-man tag, where it's going to feature, which I actually really thought they were going to go ahead with Sanjay Dutt and Satnam Singh coming out with Jay Lethal. No. Multi-time Impact World Tag Team Champions, TNA or NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Motor City Machine Guns. I want to say that's their AEW debut, right? From Impact Wrestling, working the match with Jay Lethal against FTR and Wardlow. That just sounds like a dynamite match. And something to be said about FTR, where they're always in the picture here with what they're doing. And FTR not having the World Tag Team titles is really amazing here. But, you know, they're just talk about a tag team that's really got to stand out for their crowd. Like FTR are such stars right now. It's incredible. And it's one of the things where I hope Tony Khan has made sure to keep those guys locked up for a deal. Because Triple H, if possible, talk about a tag team he'd love to have back. I think he would really, more than anything, love to get the Revival back over. And who knows? But I'd like to see him stay in AEW. I like the whole gimmick right on the Midnight Express. I just like him as a team right now and what they're doing, working, period. And being able to work in Mexico and hopefully working in Japan and other places. Because that's the other part that people don't really consider, is that if certain stars decide to go back to WWE, I don't think Triple H is going to have that opportunity to give people the chance to work at other promotions. No, that exclusivity is going to be in place, which is where Bryan Danielson wanted to work in Japan, wanted to work in other areas. So he wouldn't get to do that. So that's another thing that's got to be brought up as a factor. So anyway, I'll take FTR and Wardlow to win, but talk about a hell of a match. Motorship Machine Guns against FTR. I'd love to have that match down the line, by the way. Just saying. TBS Championship, Jade Cargill versus Athena. And I don't see where Jade Cargill is going to be dropping this belt anytime soon. Well, she going to be 37-0. I'll take her over Athena. I know that's going to upset some people that Athena should get something up higher, but you know what? She's in the TBS title match. Good for her, but I don't see that going on here. The AEW Interim Women's World Championship, you have Britt Baker versus Dr. Britt Baker DMD, Hikaru Shida, Jamie Hayter, Toni Storm. And I don't know what to think right here, but I think we have some kind of an issue where Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter have some kind of a falling out. I think that's something that will happen. I think Toni Storm becomes that interim world champion. I mean, the story's right there. It says itself. I think Toni Storm wins it. They've really put a whole lot on her. She's been made a pretty big deal. I think she's done very well in this company. So I'm going to take Toni Storm on that. Next up, the AEW Trios Championship Finals. As I said, if I am predicting right, by the time we get to All Out, it will be Hangman Adam Page and the Dark Order, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, taking on the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. And the whole Hangman Elite thing should be a fun story that they should talk about, because they've already built the storyline for that too. And the Elite will become the first Trios champions. Just calling it right now. And as for Jon Moxley and CM Punk, oh man, I don't know. I mean, you've built the momentum for CM Punk to come back again. Like the storyline with him and Ace Steel coming out to pep talk CM Punk, and then CM Punk pulling out a pretty pro-Chicago, old-school CM Punk promo to wrap it up. You put a lot out there. And the story of him coming out of injury and what he's going to be able to do, Ace Steel is now part of this storyline, so let's see where it goes with that. Will the Blackpool Combat Club have anything part to do with this? I want Jon Moxley to win. Oh, man. Yeah, I want Jon Moxley to win. I'm going to say he's going to win. I think he's going to retain. It's a good place for him to be here. Because then I think CM Punk, we need to see CM Punk who's, I don't know, man. I still think the MJF storyline needs to come back somewhere. And so I think MJF returns at All Out, and it's going to be involved in this match. I do think that's going to happen. I don't know. We'll just figure that all out. So just a quick reminder, some housekeeping here before we wrap things up. The hour's almost done. I can always go longer, but I don't want to. I respect the audience out there. I respect all of you for listening to the show as you do every week, going into 716 episodes. Coming up on 10 years of the program, December 18th. And I will look forward to having a great celebration for that here on the show. And it'll be fun. See what I can do about getting some people, some of the old hosts back on. Of course, not Chuck. We haven't falling out. I haven't talked to him since. I'll see if Mark wants to come on. I'll see if Jeremy wants to come on. I'll see if I get some other people on. We'll just do a nice little, round table together and talk about where things have gone in the last 10 years. We'll talk about that, or just the current state of wrestling in general. But things are good. I'm happy right now with all this. So we got so much wrestling going on this weekend. By the way, one more show we got to talk about, NXT When Worlds Collide. I'll do some quick predictions for that. NXT Championship Unification match. I will take Braun Breaker over Tyler Bate. The Women's Unification match for the NXT Women's Championship. Remember, it's the NXT UK belts being put up on the line, and the unifications for all these belts, because we'll have NXT Europe or WWE Europe, whatever they're going to call that, in January. Meiko Satomura versus Blair Davenport versus Mandy Rose. We got a three-way match. Mandy Rose will get the pin on Blair Davenport. And they're going to keep Meiko Satomura straight up. But it makes sense that Mandy Rose wins in a 3-way and not a heads up with Meiko Satomura. No, that's not right. NXT Tag Team Unification 4-way elimination. The Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus Creed, Josh Briggs, Brooks Jensen. I always think of the BJ Wholesale Club brand, Berkeley and Jensen, when I think of that team. Pretty Deadly, Kit Wilson and Elton Prince versus Gallus. And I will take the Creed brothers on taking all the gold. NXT North American Championship. Pretty good match. Carmelo Hayes versus Ricochet. And yeah, you could see Ricochet get the win and become North American champion, but I don't know if they're going to do that. I think Carmelo Hayes retains. Women's tag team titles. Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, the champs versus Doudrop and Nikki ASH. Interesting to see them come on board in a quick run to get the card filled up. I'll take Katana Chance and Kaden Carter to retain. Best of 3 falls match, Nathan Frazier versus Axiom. I'll take Nathan Frazier. We'll do it like that. Coming up, you'll hear, of course, the social media links, the websites. And by the way, I'll just make some quick note about what's going to be going on the programming here at King of Podcasts Radio Network. A few things I want to bring up for the upcoming episodes. If you have not had a chance to catch up, I should do this regularly. I'm going to try to do this for this program. So I just put down last night a new edition of Depraved and Debaucherous, my series. It's all about society, young culture, sex, dating, relationships, all that kind of stuff. There was a recent article in Psychology Today about the rise of lonely single men, and I talk about how there are lonely single men and how the women have turned them off to relationships. We'll talk about that. You can find that right now, the website for the show, ddradio.live, or you can find a link for the show at WrestlingIsReal.com. And then my other show is the Broadcasters Podcast. I'll be doing that recording tomorrow. And with that, we're going to talk about movies, where movie theaters don't have enough movies to put out. And this is also something where they're putting out the Saturday National Cinema Day. And if you didn't hear this yet, you can go to an AMC, Regal Cinema, or most cinemas around the country. You can go watch any movie they have in the theater, whether it's IMAX, RPX, DX, whatever it is, 4DX, or a regular screen, 3D. You can watch it for $3. And they'll have deals in the concession stands as well. So if you want to go out and watch movies on Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, there you go. $3 for any movie you want to go watch. AMC Regal Theaters definitely have that, and some of the other big chains will have the same thing, so look for that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the DC era issues right now that are going on with all the DC movies. They're all getting switched around. Among other things I'll talk about. We'll talk about the radio stations and the royalties need to pay musicians and things like that, but that's all on that show. Broadcasters Podcast, you can find a link of that at WrestlingIsReal.com. But anyway, I do other shows all the time, along with this wrestling show, which has been the flagship of the King of Podcasts Radio Network ever since 2012. But it made me foster and say, you know what, I want to do other shows, and I have. And will continue to do so. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Enjoy WWE Clash at the Castle. Enjoy AEW All Out. Remember to catch post shows of the program this weekend, Saturday and Sunday night, WrestlingIsReal.com. Until then, come back this weekend for another Wrestling Is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.